Ćao svima. Sačekat ćemo još malo da se ljudi priključe, još -2. Ja sam Bojan Kocijan. Prezentaciju ću držati na engleskom. Vidjet ćete i razlog zbog čega. I ja ću pričati o kako ugraditi accessibility u DNA vašeg proizvoda i kako dizajnirati za sve, ne samo i za ljude koji imaju problema u korištenju web aplikacija, računara i ostalo. So I think that we are safe to start. I am Bojan Kocijan. I'm a senior product designer at a company called Digital AI. And I will talking about collaboration between the designer, PMs, and developers in order to build accessible products. I'm born and raised in Belgrade. And for the past almost 4 years, I live and work in Netherlands, where I producing the designs for a company that is mostly working in planning, agile, and DevOps space. So we have a full pipeline from planning tools to the testing and AI reports on those. So during the last 15 years of my career, I went through the journey of just make it pretty, because a lot of thoughts were placed in designs. Only if the product looks good, it is great product. But over the time, I'm become the valuable team member to the companies to build the accessible and useful tools for everyone. And not only pretty, but also desired by customers. So it is about how to make product accessible in its DNA. So I will touch a bit design system and how to think about not only the colors, which you mostly heard about the color contrast and color blindness, but what are the other types of disabilities that customers are facing with, and what are the main issues and what will bring the business in order to give the instructions for the PMs and developers and the designers to start making the product accessible. So for whom are we making product accessible? And you're probably asking yourself why I place the remote control here. So we are making the product accessible for the blind users, low vision users, colorblind users, deaf and hard hearing users. There we have physical disabilities and the users with cognitive disabilities. But most of all, we are making our product accessible to everyone. So the story about remote control is that he was invented for disabled people, so they could turn off the TV, change the channel, put the volume up and down. But for all of us lazy ones who don't want to leave the couch, it is a perfect tool to turn off the TV when you want to go to sleep. So I will start with the blind users. And as I said, accessibility standards not only helps users with disabilities, but also provides a better user experience for everyone. So you can see here some numbers that globally, number of people with all ages with the visually impaired is around 285 millions, from whom 39 millions of users are blind. And as the age goes up, more and more users get to vision disability. You can see here, I shared a link from the Worldwide Health Organization, and they provide those numbers. And the main global health issue is preventable quotas are high. 80% of the total global burden is with vision impairment. So mostly we all ask ourselves, what do the blind user sees? And this is a blind person who will tell us what. I'm not sure were you able to hear the voice, but yeah, most of the people asking, does he see anything? You must see anything. He said, I don't see anything. So basically, this is how blind person will see your product, completely dark. So you need to think about how they're gonna interact with your product when they don't see anything. How design for the blind persons is they may use screen readers, may rely on the braille output, and they cannot expect to use a pointer of mouse to input. So the approach that we would have of using the keyboard or any other tool that they're using instead of the keyboard and using the screen readers. There's majority of the screen readers which gives headaches for the developers when they trying to make product accessible for the blind persons. How design for the low vision users is the persons with low vision may use the screen readers, same as the blind persons, may use screen magnifiers, high contrast modes, and others. They will scale up the browser font. And at the end, when we say design for everyone, you could be the person with a pair of glasses. You could broke your glasses, so you will get to the category of the persons with low vision users. So by designing only for the low vision persons, you will be designing for the cases when it can also affect us with wearing the contact lenses or the glasses. So also when you're designing with a high contrast mode, it is nice. So if you ever try to read the blog post out of the sun, you'll have an issue with the contrast because your string will get dimmed. So you'll probably covering your screen with the hand in order to read the blog post. But if that website would have a high contrast mode, you would be able to use it. So every of these disabilities affects everyone. And when I said, when we're designing for the blind persons, we would design with the keyboard navigation. And most of us really love to use a keyboard in order to navigate the tools. Colorblind user is somebody and probably something that we, as designers, meeting the most. And it is about the color contrast and which colors can pass the VCTA WA accessibility standard in order to pass those tests. So when we're designing with the consideration, so our teams try to comply to VCA 2.1 AA for contrast, when the AAA is a bit too harsh and it should be considered as a different theme for the customers to use. And this is, I will show you now examples. We have our brand colors and the reasons why we differ in the tools from those colors because of the accessibility. This is an example of the Airbnb where you can see even with normal vision persons, this link text is really hard to read. And especially with the colorblind person, it's almost impossible. And the color shouldn't be only differentiation of the intents in your tools. You should use white space, distance, spacing, size, in order to create a contrast in your tools. So this is our primary colors. So our primary brand color is green. We have a primary gray and call to action red, which the guys from the product and product designers said, no, we cannot use these colors for our primary actions and call to action because red means good, green, red means bad, green means good. So we are communicating the statuses in the tool. So in order to make clear differentiation about the status, and also having in mind that red-green color blindness is the most common one in the world, we decided to differentiate, move away from the red and green as primary colors. So we decided to go to blue. And ability not to see good blue colors, it calls this tritanopia. And the lowest number of persons in the world would suffer from that color blindness. So it is 0.002% comparing to the red and green, which is 5% of the total population. You can see here, we took our primary brand color, passed it through the color contrast checker, and it failed. It failed on small fonts, small text. So we decided, aspect of the reason that green is used for successful messages, we said, yeah, let's go blue. And our blue is passing the color contrast. As you can see, it is only the amount of people that doesn't see blue is 0.02%. There is also color psychology that it gives trust, but main reason why we decided to go blue is because of the accessibility. When we're using a red, we always pair the distractive actions with the icon, because if you're colorblind, only viewing the red button doesn't mean anything to you. You need to concentrate. And with pairing it with icon, we clearly give ability to the user to just scan and see that that action will be harmful for him. Interesting fact is that in Japan, the standard for the traffic lights is that green means goes, red means stops, but this is not connected with accessibility. In Japan, they have a same word for green and blue, and that's why their green light is the most bluish green that they could put. So that's how the Japanese government explained why they have a blue traffic light. But if you take a look in accessibility, it's really good, because then it will be accessible and visible to the most of the participants in the traffic. When we're designing for the deaf and hard of hearing users, we would use a caption in the videos. And it means that they would be able to consume a video material. For the users without a disability, it would help you if you're, for example, in a noisy room and you cannot hear the voice from your video, you would turn on the caption in order to view the video. And as you can see, I also using the caption in case of anyone in the audience is having issues with disabilities. We have physical disabilities. So users with the physical disabilities usually suffers from the range movement in the arms. So they might not be able to use point to click or mouse as a tool. They would rely on a keyboard, trackballs, voice recognition, and other assistive technologies. By designing for physical disabilities, we would also use a keyboard as the main tool to navigate our tools. And by that said, for the users without disabilities, it is nice to have. And it can always happen to you that you can stretch your arm, burn your finger, or even break your arm. So you can come always to the group of the users with their disabilities. And something that is not that connective with how to solve it with the code base or colors is a user with cognitive disabilities. So here in place comes the most of the UX laws. So like the memory problem, Miller law can solve it because you will show to the customer only amount of results that he can put in his working memory. So your tool will be easily used also with the person with the cognitive disabilities. So I said at the beginning that this is a team effort. So as I said, business needs to find, to determine the need of your product being accessible. There is a couple of reasons when business bring those decisions. So most not harmful reason is that your tool is starting to becoming an enterprise tool and you're starting to selling your tool to the government organizations. By that said, by law, most of the government organizations need to hire and keep hiring the people with disabilities, and the products that they're using needs to support people with disabilities. So in order to get the contract signed, your tools needs to be accessible. Second, more serious need, well, both are serious, but second one is that you can get a lawsuit because of your tool is not accessible. So if you not allow everyone, for example, you're running the e-commerce site and you're not allowing everyone to finish their journey from viewing the product till buying it, you're not including everyone. So easily you can be sued and lost that lawsuit. And they can range in millions. And that is pretty, in Western Europe, it's pretty common, and also in US that it will affect companies. It will be a discrimination. So the PMs are the first one who start also driving. So from the top management to the PMs to drive the accessibility as a topic. Then the designers to implement color contrast in the pattern library and designs. Designers and developer together to document the patterns and components. Developers to develop those components with the proper area labels, proper tab order, and so on. And I think the most difficult task of everything is how to test it for accessibility. What is our process? We are using a Figma as a tool of choice for creating our, we're calling pattern library because it's not a component library, it's just for designers to produce designs that will be always same. And then we are using a storybook when we're developing those components to preview them, to give an interaction with the components, to preview the properties of the components, and then we do the documentation in zero height. For design, code library, and the documentation, I'm sure that there is a different tools. You can use a Sketch or Adobe XD, but this is our path and flow which we are following. So you can see here variants in Figma, and then in Storybook, the components is built with the proper properties of the component. There is our documentation of all components that we are developing in zero height. And what we are documenting from the components is a usage, document anatomy, states, do's and don'ts. So we are, as a designer, what we need to provide to the developers is a color contrast, focus states, how it will be navigating with the keyboard, and that is done through the communication. So as you can see, we have a couple of tabs where we say we have a role in usage of the component. We have a design specs. It means that the developer can get in there and inspect the component itself, because we have a code preview where you can interact with the component in the Storybook sandbox, and we have a status. So when did we last time push any changes to this documentation? So for the developers part, it becomes a bit trickier, because in order to create, for example, accessible tabs, they need to assign appropriate roles to the every tab item, to add the area attributes and tab indexing. So most of the screen readers, then that comes to screen readers, will either read the title of the or the graph, or the role, or the even the label itself. And they will make the combination of all in order to help the visual impaired users to use your tool. So as I said, the tricky part comes with the QA, who needs to test for accessibility. So when it comes to the color contrast, you can fail your test if they don't passing the color contrast. Navigation test with the keyboard is also not that tricky, but the trickiest part comes to the manual or automated test for text-to-speech, where they need to cover different text-to-speech engines. And yeah, as I see it doesn't translate me right when I'm speaking English, but yeah, I hope it's good enough. So the trickiest part is to find the way how to test for your tool to the speech. And yeah, that's it for me. If you have, it would be nice to, if you could describe this presentation in 3 words. You can scan with your phone the QR code, or go to the menti.com and use the code 32712137 in order to access it. And I would be happy to hear what is your thoughts about the presentation. Thank you.